Hey, NFL fans, welcome to another episode of NFL Jocks and Pigskins with Tom Pollen. And who is that? Is that,
That's bogey.
I was going to say, that's not Zozo. Okay.
No, that's bogey pollen.
So if you had Bogey coming into the show at .001, you got it right.
Yeah, you got it right. You matched it.
Yeah. What happened? What's going on here?
Oh, I think Chris just came in.
Oh, hey, Chris.
Came in. I just came in. Oh, I'm sorry. Y'all then started and got live. My internet wasn't even working, and I'm like, oh, finally it lets me in. Well, I will hop off then and let you gentlemen continue.
We're actually on time today, Chris.
Huh? What'd you say?
We're actually on time today.
Hey,
Yeah.
look, I love it. We are all set. Well, I'm gonna shut up and let it go.
All right. Sounds good, Chris.
That's Chris. We let him introduce himself this week.
Yeah.
He's our producer, normally behind the scenes, but we love when he jumps in too. So we have a great show today. Falcons lost last week, but it felt like a little bit like a win. I don't know. Maybe other Falcons fans don't feel that way. I would love to hear from them how they felt after the loss to Tampa Bay. But it felt like if I don't want to say moral victory. I don't like that term at the NFL level, but it just didn't feel like, they lost by 40 points to the Cowboys. It didn't feel like they blew the lead against Washington late in that game. So we'll dive into, the health of the Falcons, where they are right now, 5-7, going into another key matchup as they try to stay in the playoff hunt against another team that's 5-7, Carolina Panthers. They're also fighting for their playoff lives on Sunday. So we will have that breakdown. And of course, we have Tom's picks against the spread and his prize picks for week 14. Today's video brought to you by our friends at Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy sports game on the market. Sign up. There's the banner right there. When you sign up, make sure you use the promo code ASU. You can get up to a 100% match on your first deposit up to $100. So if you put down 20 bucks, you get $20 in return using the promo code ASU. Up to $100 they're willing to match there.
Yeah, and not just NFL games either. You can get other sports. You can do college football. You can do college basketball. You can do NBA, NHL. I mean, they have it all set up there for you. It's not just NFL. I don't want everybody to get the idea that you can only do NFL. You can do a lot of other sports there too. And yeah, you still use the promo code ASU, and you still get that match up to $100.
Yeah, we'll only have picks for you to use for NFL games.
Yeah, I don't do the other games.
There are other sports that you can dive into too if you're fans of the NHL, college football. Big Army-Navy game today that I'll be watching at 3:00 Eastern time.
Go Navy!
Yeah, my brother-in-law is probably going to be mad, but yeah, I like the Navy as well. I like midshipmen as the mascot. I kind of like. I always gravitate towards rooting for them.
My dad was Navy, so always have to stay behind the Navy.
So that'll be a fun game. I always like to tune into the Army-Navy game, second Saturday of December. But we got NFL talk here today. Atlanta Falcons lost last week. They are losers in 3 of their last 4 games. They're 0-5 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium this season. A lot of negative happening around the team over the last month, I guess you could say. Only 1 win against the lowly Jaguars. But if you were in that press room after the game, I mean, Arthur Smith and all the players were really, really positive about how they played against Tampa Bay and their chances going forward the rest of this season.
Well, they played a tough game against Tampa Bay. They really competed. That's the thing that gets me is that game was there for them to win, and Tampa Bay waited the entire third quarter for Atlanta to do something to make it real competitive. But that's the problem is sacks at bad times. you're driving the ball, you're looking good, and all of a sudden the sack takes you out of that, puts you in third and long, or third and long, and you take a sack and you end up punting. So it was a frustrating game to watch because you felt like the Falcons were moving the football against a team that supposedly you're not allowed to run the ball against.
Right. Yeah.
And and Davis had some nice runs. Patterson had some nice runs. Everybody looked good, but just small key mistakes. And against Tampa, you're playing that kind of a team. You're defending world champs. You've got to play a perfect game. Okay, you don't have room to make those little mistakes that the Falcons made, and that ended up costing them.
Yeah, the fumble was a big mistake, and that was something that one of the beat writers tried to get Arthur Smith to say was a turning point in the game, and Arthur Smith was having none of it. And, I think Smith had a good point that the Falcons even had their chances after that Russell Gage fumble in the third quarter.
Otherwise, I thought Gage played a real good game.
Oh, yeah.
I thought Gage was tough. Gage came through for Ryan when Ryan was having problems finding other receivers. Russell Gage was there for him.
Probably the best game of his career.
Yeah. So I liked the way he performed.
Yeah, the Falcons need a lot more of that with, no Calvin Ridley, no Julio Jones. We've talked about this a lot. Doubling Kyle Pitts. Somebody else has to step up. And, it's Russell Gage that's got to be the guy.
Well, yeah, you got to give the secondary somebody else to look at.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just the way it is. And, and that's we've been saying that for a while too. And Russell Gage stepped up last week. I would like to see Tajay Sharp step up a little more. I don't know if he's just not getting open or maybe Ryan doesn't feel comfortable with him. I think Tajay Sharp comes up with catches every time Ryan looks at him, but he doesn't seem to come up with to be targeted quite as much in this past game.
Yeah. Sharp had 5 targets last week. Olamide Zaccheaus had 5. Sharp only had 10 yards on 3 catches with his 5 targets. Zaccheaus much more, 44 yards.
Yeah.
But Russell Gage clearly led everybody with 12 targets, 11 catches on those 12 targets, and 130 yards receiving.
But that's how you get that back safety. That's how you get him from spying on Pitts. You got to get somebody else going.
Mm-hmm.
And then you can finally get Pitts back into single coverage and maybe do some damage there. I wish they would do more with Patterson out of the backfield as a receiver. I think that would help too. I think they're kind of getting into a habit where they're using Patterson too much in the running game and kind of forgetting that he can catch the ball too. And maybe letting him either letting him slip out of the backfield or lining up in the slot and letting him, run routes. Because I think, you have a weapon there that you can use, and I think they're overlooking it.
Yeah, and I want to return to the running game that you mentioned. It's been a real good ground game the last 2 weeks against the Jaguars, and then against, you could say, well, it's the Jaguars, but then Tampa Bay is supposed to be one of the best run defenses in the league, right. And they put up 120 yards, averaged over 5 yards per carry as a team. So it was very encouraging. That was one of the most encouraging signs I thought from last week's game was the running game, and I want to see more of that. I want to see more dedication to it. On the first drive, they had, I think it was like 68 rushing yards. They went 75 yards. More than 65 of the yards were on the ground. And then this is what I'm talking about, being dedicated to the ground game. You have gashing runs of 10, 12, 15 yards, 17-yard touchdown for Mike Davis on the first drive, giving you your first drive touchdown of the season.
Yes.
And then on the second drive of the game, you had 4 plays. 3 of them were passes.
Right. Exactly. It was just frustrating. It was ridiculous. You got into that situation again. You're inside the 5, and you have to bring Young Wei Ku out to
Right.
kick
That was
the field goal.
a little bit later in the first half. Yeah.
Right. It's just you can't. You're getting inside, let alone the red zone, getting inside the 5-yard line. You've got to come away with a touchdown in there. And you're running the ball successfully. Keep running the ball. Keep doing what's working. You say, okay, we've run the ball successfully. They're not going to look for a pass, or they're not going to be ready for this route or that route, or this kind of play. Are you running the ball? Sometimes the best play is just shove the ball down their throats.
Yeah.
And they were doing that successfully.
They did throw a nice pass on the first play of the second drive. It was a 12-yard gain to Kyle Pitts. That's probably a play that, okay, you want to get Kyle Pitts involved early. It's a script play, maybe. Maybe it's a case of, well, we ran the ball really successfully, so now let's get a little bit going in the pass. So they did that. And then to Arthur Smith's credit, they did run the ball in the next play, and they gained 6 yards. And the next 2 plays were passes, incomplete pass, and then a sack. So I don't want to stress this point too much, but you're getting 6 yards per carry early in the game. Like, why are you dropping back to pass on 2nd and 4? I think that play needs to be another running play.
It really does. Yeah, it has to be. You got to go with what's working. At some point, if you got to scrap the game plan for a while, scrap the game plan for a while. If all of a sudden you see something's working that you didn't expect to work, or you figure your plan was to run early and then start passing the ball. Well, run early was working. Yeah, that was getting you there. Yeah. Go ahead and keep pounding away at it, and make Tampa Bay start questioning themselves, because I think they had Tampa Bay on the ropes there. As I don't think Tampa Bay was confident they could stop the run at that point.
Right. Tampa Bay wasn't doing as poorly stopping the run as the Steelers were on Thursday, but I mean, in the fourth quarter, of that game, Dalvin Cook was averaging 9.9 yards per carry. No running back should ever be averaging that much yards per carry in the fourth quarter. And the reason why I'm saying that is I would run that running back until his average drops to below 5 yards. And if it continues to stay that high, I keep giving him the ball. And Minnesota wasn't doing that. I get Cook was coming off of an injury, so maybe they wanted to limit his snaps a little bit, but he looked great. So just keep giving him the ball until the Steelers stop him, or until the game's 40-0 instead of 29-0. You let them back in the game. A little different situation with the Falcons, but they were averaging 6 yards per carry. You shouldn't average that much in an NFL game. You give that ball to the running back until that average drops down,
especially against the Buccaneers. This is your run defense. This is a team that, well, let's see where they are now this week.
They're not quite as elite, I think, as they were last year. I mean, last year they were just
not as elite as they were last year.
They were impossible to run the ball against last year.
But
they've had some injuries, and that's part of why they're not as good statistically.
They still only average 4.1 yards per carry on defense.
Yeah,
allowed. So that's 8th in the NFL. That's still pretty darn good.
Right. Yeah.
And if you're succeeding in running 6 yards a carry against that defense, keep going.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to take the play sheet and say, okay, well, let's do away with it. Let's tear up this part of the play sheet and keep going.
Yeah,
and that's what gets me about coaches, is sometimes they just they try to be too smart for their own good. This isn't a difficult game sometimes.
Yeah, I agree with you. And to Arthur Smith's defense, some of it is execution. He tried to trick Tampa Bay. I would say he tried to trick them on that you referenced, that goal line, the goal line series where they had to settle for a field goal inside the 5. 1st and goal at the 1, they tried to pass. I would say that's a trick play, even if it's a traditional passing play. On second and goal at the 1, they were going to try and run, and it was a botched snap. It was whether that was Matt Ryan's fault or the center's fault.
There were a couple of botched snaps in the game. That kind of surprised me.
Yeah. And the Falcons, I didn't notice during the game, but it was mentioned during the post-game press conference that they're rotating centers.
Oh, okay.
Did you notice that? I didn't notice it.
No, I didn't notice it.
So Matt Hennessy, I don't think got all of the snaps, and I'm wondering if he was one of the players that were interviewed, and he said that it played no role in him coming in and out of the game in terms of his play. I do wonder, though, if it did play a role. He wants to minimize that and not make any excuses, and I credit him for that. But is your center? I don't know. Does he make a mistake like that if he's in the game all the time? I don't know. It's hard to say.
I don't think he does. I think that's one of the problems is as a quarterback, you kind of get used to accepting the ball a certain way from the center. And if you're running out two different centers, you're accepting the ball slightly different each time. And that can make a difference.
Yeah.
It really can. Not every not all centers are alike as far as how they hand the ball back and how they get the ball back to the quarterback. So I would say, that does play a part of it because you don't normally see Ryan mishandle snaps like that. That's not part of his game.
Yeah.
So I think that had a lot to do with it.
Pantera, a little bit harsh on Arthur Smith here. Atlanta can play half a game, then halftime comes and Smith breaks out the margaritas, and it's sloppy second halftime. I mean, that was true with Dan Quinn too, right? I mean, that's been a problem with the Falcons for a long time. Fourth quarter play. The first half wasn't great either against Tampa Bay. I thought both halves were about the same. To be honest, they were close. They were within striking distance. If they made a couple plays, if they score at the goal line, or
that's the thing.
If the Russell Gage's fumble doesn't happen and they score on that drive and tie the game or take the lead, then the plays were there for them to make. But I think they made mistakes throughout the game. It wasn't just a bad second half.
And that's the difference between being where the Falcons are and being where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are. The Buccaneers don't make those mistakes.
Right.
And if you want to play with the Buccaneers, even though you're not quite as talented, you're not quite as good, you have to play a mistake-free game. You can't afford that fumble. You can't afford those bad snaps. You can't afford giving up sacks on third down. You've got to play that perfect game. And that's why I say, when the Falcons were playing well, the game was there for them. It was theirs for the taking if they wanted it, if they were able to take it.
Right.
Not saying that they didn't want it.
They wanted it.
Yeah, they wanted it. But they weren't capable of taking it because of the mistakes.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You can get away with that kind of game against Carolina Panthers, who's coming up next on the schedule. You can get away with that. A few mistakes here and there. Because Tampa's going to make you eat those mistakes. Right. That's the problem.
Mm-hmm.
You're playing a team. Playoff teams make you eat those mistakes that you make, and so you can't be allowed to make them. You can't you're not going to get away with them.
But despite those mistakes, despite the 13-point loss, as I said at the top of the show, the Falcons were a very confident group in the post-game press conference. I think they're confident going forward, especially into this game against Carolina tomorrow. Which is interesting because, we mentioned that the game was there for the taking, but at the same time, if Tom Brady doesn't make an egregious mistake throwing the ball to Marlon Davidson, who made a play on that one-handed interception, this is a 20-point loss, not even 13-point.
I give Marlon Davidson all the credit for reading that play from the start.
Right.
Okay. He read it. He saw that play develop in front of him, and he knew exactly where Brady was going with the ball. So give Marlon Davidson all the credit in the world for making that play happen. And And that was just beautiful.
It was beautiful. It was. It was. But the point I'm trying to make, though, without that play,
yeah,
it's a three possession loss. But it's to a team that, I mean, there's a lot of parity. We've talked about this in weeks past. There's a lot of parity in the league this year.
yeah.
It's really hard to figure out who are truly the elite teams. But I think if we were going to rank the top 3 teams right now, Tampa Bay is in the top 3. So
Absolutely.
So being within 13 points with that pick 6 that we're talking about for the Falcons at this point, maybe it is a moral victory if you want to use that term. So what I'm getting at here, Tom, is I want your assessment of, where the Falcons are going into tomorrow's game. How confident should they be? And, what are their chances going forward at the playoffs and I guess at tomorrow?
Gremlin. Yep. Hey, Gremlin. My assessment is I still think they look good. I think, again, Arthur Smith, it looks like they want to play for him. They want to come through for him. It's just a matter of talent. There's not enough talent on the offensive line. There's not enough talent at wide receiver to really make this work. And
Right.
That's why I wish they would use Patterson more, either out of the backfield or out of the slot and get him out in the pattern somewhere. Because I think he could add that extra dimension that the Falcons are missing right now in their passing game, because they can't seem to free up Pitts. And yeah, Gage had a great game, but Gage is your only other real weapon right now. He's the only other guy who's coming through. I think the team is playing confident, and that goes a long way. I think the team felt confident on defense and what they were able to do. Brady made some plays, but that's what Tom Brady does. One of his touchdowns to Gronkowski, was a hell of a throw. He kind of can float that ball into space and give his receiver a chance to make a play. And, that's something you got to beat, but, that's what you get when you face Brady. And I think otherwise the defense actually did do a fairly good job, even though they didn't put the pressure on Brady again like I would have liked to have seen him. The hell of it is, if Brady's been like this his whole career, you put pressure on him, and he'll make mistakes for you. But
You got to pressure him with 4 guys, though.
yeah, right, exactly. Because with Godwin, Evans, and Gronkowski out there, you've got to have.
He just will get rid of the ball too quickly.
Yeah, he'll get rid of the ball, right?
Yeah.
And I saw Dean Pease tried to run some stunts, tried to run a few games. None of it worked. And that's the frustrating part of the defense. When you're playing a team like Tampa Bay, you've got to create something. Davidson created the turnover, made the turnover happen, saw what was going on. You've got to create other things, though. You've got to be able to create another turnover somewhere. Force them to make a mistake. They didn't make mistakes. Except for that one, interception. But Tampa's good enough to come back from that, to recover from that. The Falcons aren't.
Gremlin weighing in on a few topics that we've already hit upon. I think he's talking about first down. Again, they did try to run the ball on 2nd and goal at the 1, but botched snap made it look like, well, we didn't know what play it was, but Arthur Smith said after the game it was a running play. And yeah, Gronk had a huge game for them last week for Tampa Bay. And I think this one actually is the most important comment that Gremlin left is, yeah, as positive as we're spinning things right now for the Falcons, they only scored 10 points on offense again. And that's even with all the rushing yards, with Russell Gage having a career day. They still only managed the 1 touchdown to begin the game, and that was it on offense. And that is not really a good sign that you're not scoring more despite those yards that you're getting from Gage and on the ground and so forth. So to beat Carolina, to beat any team, there needs to be a little bit more offense. And I think what makes this even more interesting, the matchup tomorrow from Carolina's perspective, they've had their own problems on offense as well, and they're going to have a new play caller tomorrow.
Yes. Yeah, it's
which was weird because that news broke during the Falcons game last week. I was at the stadium.
Yes, it did. Right.
And I didn't understand why Matt Rule waited a week to make that move. I mean, if that's your decision, don't you want 2 full weeks for your new play caller to get ready for the next game? Why are you firing somebody halfway through your bye week?
Well, that's what I would think. To me, yeah, that's kind of what I would figure out is how you want to do it. But did it take him a week to figure out that he wanted
to go it's almost it's almost like he was thinking about it for a week. Like, why? I don't understand why he would need to do that.
Now, I know you do some self-scouting during the bye week. No, I'm serious.
No, I'm laughing because he did his self-scouting and then he fired somebody.
Well,
I've never heard of that.
No. Maybe scouted his team for a week, watched all the film, and said, "Okay, well, let's do something different on offense." I don't know. I don't think Matt Rule is going to last much longer in Carolina as it is.
I don't think so either.
I think he's another coach that's on the hot seat.
Well, I mean, maybe this is his way of trying to put the blame on somebody else. I don't know. It might be because I'm looking at the big reason it's being reported. The big reason why Joe Brady, who 2 years ago was like the hot name.
He was the hot head coach name. Yes.
Yeah. That Matt Rule and Brady weren't getting along was because Brady wasn't running the ball enough. Well, you just take a quick look at the stats. I mean, Carolina is top 10 in rushing yards per game, but they're in the bottom third in rushing attempts. In yards per carry. So that to me says they're running the ball probably more than average if they're getting that many yards on the ground, but they're not averaging very much per carry. How much more does Matt Rule want on the ground?
Well, that's the thing. You may not be getting a lot per carry, but it's not necessarily the best offensive line in the NFL.
Christian McCaffrey's also been injured. So, I mean, it's one thing
exactly.
if you're not running the ball with Christian McCaffrey, but he's been out most of the season.
Right. And McCaffrey, I don't know. I wouldn't, I don't know what his contract status is, but I think he's got to be close to finish because he can't stay healthy to save his life. He's one of the best players in the NFL, both running and catching the ball, but he can't stay healthy. You can't pay him what Carolina is currently paying him and keep him on the team.
So you're saying Carolina needs to let him go?
I'm saying Carolina, yeah. Either that or he's got to take a lot less money because he's getting elite money and he can't stay on the field.
Yeah, that's true.
He's an elite back when he does stay on the field.
Right.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But, but I mean, was it Brady's fault that, Cam Newton, fizzled out, after you benched Cam Newton for PJ Walker? That's,
I'm not laughing at you. I'm laughing because fizzled out. I mean, he had what, a good week? It wasn't like
he had like 4 plays and 2 touchdowns.
Sam Darnold fizzled out because Sam Darnold actually had a good start, a good September, and then it crashed and burned.
Right.
And Cam Newton had one good game, a couple good plays as you're mentioning. So I don't have confidence that Matt Rule is going to stay there much longer either. But
well, the thing is, you're gaining so many yards. This is an offensive line that, by my rankings, they're 31st in the league. Third down, they're 28th in the league in allowing in third down percentage and converting third downs. 28th in the league. They give up 25% negative pass plays when they drop back to pass, and that's 25th in the league. It's not an offensive line that's doing much of a job. That they're gaining yards at all on the ground, is amazing. And with a team that doesn't pass well and doesn't, has DJ Moore and that's about it.
Yeah. Yeah. Robbie Anderson is having a bad season.
Oh, Robbie Anderson's been awful.
Yeah.
Even when they've tried to target him, he hasn't been very good as far as catching the ball and doing anything with it. So, and I know because he's on my fantasy team and he's just breaking my heart.
Well, he was on my fantasy team and I dropped him.
Yeah. So, this is an offensive line that just is not good. And this is an offensive line that the Falcons should actually be able to get off against and get some pressure with. So I would like to see the Falcons get some pressure this week because this is their opportunity. You're facing an offensive line that you can really handle if you go out there and you're working it right. And you got a quarterback who you can force into making mistakes. This is a game the Falcons should win handily if they come out in defense and play the quality of defense they played against Tampa Bay, but bring more pressure and just I think they can shut Carolina down pretty well.
I think so too, and I think the players again were confident because they like this matchup coming up. I find it very interesting that for what it's worth, I don't put a lot of stock into the ESPN matchup predictor thing, but the matchup predictor has Carolina at 67.5% chance of victory.
Really?
Yeah.
Because I take a look at every week, every Saturday morning before the show, I take a look at Cynthia Freeland's projections for each game. I think that's what you're talking about is she runs a mathematical model of each game. I think she plays out the game 1,000 times on the computer to see how things line up. And I would not expect the Carolina Panthers to have come out on top in a mathematical model like that.
Yeah, I wouldn't either. I think the Falcons are going to win this game, and it's a must-win matchup for them to stay in the playoff hunt. I mentioned they're 5-7, Carolina's 5-7. So there's a bunch of teams stacked up. I'm going to pull up the standings now. Minnesota won on Thursday, which was not good news for the other NFC.
Not good news for the Falcons at all.
Right. Yeah. And that was a chance for them to lose to a team that the Falcons aren't competing with, an AFC team.
Right.
You want, teams like Washington, San Francisco, Minnesota, Philly, Carolina, when they're playing AFC teams, if they play any in December and January, you need those AFC teams to win if you're the Falcons.
Yes, you have to. The thing about the Vikings is they almost gave up that game. It's amazing how Mike Zimmer goes to such soft coverage in the fourth quarter. He let the Steelers back in the game. They're lucky they scored a fourth quarter touchdown because they would have lost that game. They're lucky Chase Claypool, is an idiot, or they would have lost that game.
There were lots of things. I mean, they were lucky that the referees didn't throw a flag on a very similar hit that Minkah Fitzpatrick got flagged for, not a penalty, hitting a Viking offensive player, and jarring the bar loose. He hit him in the shoulder, and they threw a flag, led to a Minnesota score in the first half, and then Harrison Smith. It was a good hit. It shouldn't have been flagged, but it was the same hit that Minkah Fitzpatrick was flagged for.
Yeah.
And Pat Freiermuth almost caught that pass if not for that hit.
Yes,
so, and that would have given them the chance to tie it with the 2-point conversion. So
it would.
It was a very interesting Thursday night game. Second half, I guess, after a horrible first half from the Steelers.
Yeah, but again, and I made a tweet early in the first half. I'm like, well, don't be surprised if the momentum shifts at some point in this game because that's what the Vikings do.
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
And they did it. They should have had their starters on the bench the entire fourth quarter.
Yeah,
that's just the game was theirs. And playing the two deep safeties. they let they gave Pittsburgh those intermediate passes that just let them get right back into the game. It's just ridiculous. That's how they lost against the Lions. That soft zone, and that's how the Lions were able to drive down and get the game-winning touchdown.
Yeah.
You think Zimmer would have learned his lesson, but he didn't. He almost gave the game away to the Steelers.
Kirk Cousins threw 2 interceptions too in the second
Still,
half.
It doesn't matter. But then again, why is he throwing the ball when you're that far ahead?
That too.
I said you're running the ball so
Dalvin Cook's he's literally averaging a first down every time he carries. Right. Every time. And Justin Jefferson disappeared in the second half. He was on my fantasy team, and it's hell rooting for a team and then having another team, a fantasy player on the other side.
Yes,
but it was like it was a little bit like in the first quarter, definitely the first half. Well, Jefferson has enough points, so just stop. I hope the Vikings offense just stops, and that's pretty much what happened. Jefferson had like 1 catch in the second half after dominating in the first half. That shouldn't happen either.
Nope.
And they needed Dalvin Cook to come up with that key third down catch for if that doesn't happen, then the Steelers have even more time on their last drive.
Yeah, so it's amazing how Zimmer handles the end of games.
Yeah,
because that game, they should have been ready to go home by the end of the third quarter.
Yeah,
and they allowed the Steelers to get right back into it. They let up. They took the foot off the gas. I hate teams that take their foot off the gas. The Saints are another one of those teams. You get up big, and all of a sudden you just it's like you're playing a preseason game, where you're just kind of trying to run out the clock. Well, the clock doesn't run as fast when somebody's keeps pounding the end zone on you.
Well, it doesn't run when you pass either.
No.
And throw incomplete passes or interceptions.
Minnesota just amazes me each week because they're not a bad team, but I think they're a terribly coached team. And I really think Mike Zimmer needs to be gone at the end of the season.
All right. Yeah, the Vikings are 8th, 1 spot out of the playoffs right now at 6-7. They're in a tie with Philadelphia, who is also 6-7. Philadelphia on bye this week. Washington and San Francisco holding down those last 2 NFC wildcard spots at 6-6. Panthers, Falcons, and Saints all at 5-7. So this is a big game. There's no other way to dice it for the Falcons. You can't fall to 5-8 and 12th, 13th place in the conference. You're done.
Right.
At 6-7, there's a lot of teams that are 6-7 or 6-6, could be 6-7 after the weekend. But you're right in the mix if you win this game and you're 6-7, and you still have a pretty favorable schedule too down the stretch. You play Detroit, you play San Francisco, a team that you're competing with for that wild card spot. So, and
a team that isn't all that good. San Francisco is not all that good of a team. Mm-hmm. And especially with Deebo Samuel now possibly hurt.
Yeah.
Without Deebo Samuel, that team is really that team goes down an entire level on offense. He carries that team. He has that team on his shoulders.
Him and Mitchell. Elijah Mitchell.
Yes, Elijah Mitchell. And Elijah Mitchell's hurt.
Right.
That's a hell of a thing when you're the 2 guys who make it work for you, aren't healthy. And I don't know, because we haven't gotten to game 17 yet. But man, we're seeing a lot of injuries. And I don't know if it's because we're looking at a 17-game season, or maybe coaches are handling their players different, or I don't know. Do you see a difference here in this? Because this is a new scenario as far as the 17th game.
I think that's something we can return to after the season, after we've seen the whole picture. I feel like we have this conversation every year. Oh my God, the NFL, there's so many injuries this year. It's just ridiculous. And it's just, this is football, unfortunately.
It is, yes.
You know, I'm not saying, I don't want to just shrug my shoulders and be like, well, it's football, because obviously I'd rather see these guys be playing, and I want the game to be safe, but it's a physical game. So there are going to be injuries.
Yeah, I agree, but it just seems like we're seeing a lot more of it, especially the key players, especially the frontline players. It's been a rough year for stars as far as playing, and I don't know if it just our coaches handling their players differently during the week, and somehow they end up getting hurt as the season's going on. I don't have all the answers. I'm just wondering.
It's a good thing to ask, and let's take a look at that in a month. I can't believe there's still a month left in the season. That to me is what's amazing. Is that Christmas is going to be the semifinals in fantasy. It just makes I know it's just one more week, but it makes it feel like it's a lot longer season when you're going to the middle of January almost. I mean, college football is going to be having their championship game, and the NFL is playing week 18 for the regular season. It's weird.
Yes, it is. It really is. I would like to see the NFL start a week earlier. And get their season back in tune so that Super Bowl is being played in January. I don't know. I'm probably in the minority on that. I think the NFL likes it that they're the only game in town playing their championship when, kind of getting out of the shadow of the college football championship game. Okay, yeah, you guys have yours, and now we'll have ours. And
right. There's not much going on in the middle of February. The NFL wants that February calendar. They already dominate September, August, so they don't need it earlier.
Right.
The other thing is, I don't think they want to go to war with college football on Labor Day weekend. It would be great if we had NFL games Labor Day weekend. We could have it, Sunday, a nice Monday, maybe the doubleheader Monday night matchup on a holiday.
Yes.
That would be nice, but that's college football's weekend. I don't think NFL wants to challenge that.
No, because the NFL does not want to tick off their farm system that they don't have to pay for.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So they're not going to, unfortunately.
Colleges allow them on campus to scout. Colleges allow pro teams to come talk to students on campus. The NFL is not going to mess with that.
Right.
Well, that's the reason why the NFL didn't play on Thursday for so long, because Thursday belonged to college football.
Mm-hmm.
And the NFL was like, no, we will not interfere with college football. That's why the NFL doesn't play on Saturdays until college football season's over.
It's right. As soon as they get a chance, they put Saturday games on. It's not that they don't want to have Saturday games.
Right.
Because there'll be Saturday games next week. But they don't have Saturday games until the college football season is completely over.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because they got that handshake agreement with the colleges, and they're not going to interfere with that.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. We need to get to your picks because we're running, short on time here. I did want to talk about the Falcons and their 0-5 record at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, but how about we table that until next week?
Okay.
I guess all I'll say is I like that this game is in Carolina tomorrow. I just think, I don't know what it is. I actually asked Arthur Smith about this in the press conference.
Did you?
I did, yeah. I asked him, is there something that is going on the road that's working that's just not working at home? I didn't want to. It was the first question I asked him this season. I didn't want to make him angry at me, calling out him for being 0-5 at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I just honestly want to know is like what's going on the road that's not happening at home, and we'll talk about it next week. But
Dave, you asked the question the right way, though. That's perfect. I really like how you did that.
Well, thank you. I think I think that's one of asking questions to athletes and coaches is really hard. I think it's the hardest thing reporters have to do. But I think a lot of reporters are lazy about it, and they say, "Well, tell me how you feel."
Yeah,
how I feel.
Well, how do I feel about losing? Really? Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. How did making that play make you feel?
Look around for it.
Feel
There's
good.
a sound file. Years ago, when Dave Kingman was with the Cubs, this is going back late 70s. Somebody asked Tommy Lasorda. Dave Kingman hit 3 home runs at Dodger Stadium against Lasorda and the Dodgers. Somebody asked Tommy Lasorda, "What did you think about Dave Kingman's performance?" And the answer is just classic. How did I feel? He hit 3 home runs against me, and you're asking me how I feel?
Right.
Whenever somebody asks that "how do you feel" question, my mind always zaps back. I know it's an old reference, folks. I get
Right.
that. Okay.
But it stays true today. I mean, that
It's
that question is asked all the time. All the time. And
it's hilarious, Lasorda's answer. Because he asked the guy, he goes, "Well, what's your name?" Yeah. You're really asking me that.
Yeah. And so I wanted to ask Smith about the home struggles, and if you just take a few minutes to try and phrase it in a non-confrontational way, it will go a long way towards getting a better answer.
Yes.
Not that he didn't answer it entirely, because if he had the answer, he would fix it. That's the other thing.
Right. Well, but you asked the question in the right way.
I tried to. Yeah.
You did. Is there something different you're doing on the road?
Mm-hmm.
Or can you identify something? And it's a legitimate question.
Right. Yeah, it is.
It really is.
So I just there's 5 games left in the season for the Falcons. 3 of them are on the road, and I think that's a good thing, because we'll talk about it next week. I will have our theories for why they're not winning at home. It's a big problem. Their next home game is against the worst team in the league, Detroit. And if they don't win that game, God help me. I mean, it's just like they have a huge home problem if they do not beat Detroit.
Oh, they have to beat Detroit
in 2 weeks. 2 weeks from tomorrow.
Detroit has now won their game.
Right.
So I'm going to be interested to see what we get out of Detroit the rest of the year. They've won their game now. Mm-hmm. And they've won it against a division rival. So, that even makes it doubly sweet.
Right. That's a good point. We'll see. I mean, there's 2 more weeks. Lots can happen. Injuries can happen. But that's a game that that's the next home game. And it's a game that it's just must win. These are all must wins for them to make the playoffs, but that's a must win for just the psyche of the fan base that you're trying to win in front of and trying to sell. And we talked about last week how there's just a lot of empty seats. To get people into the seats, you got to beat Detroit at home. But let's get to your picks. Week 14 has a lot of great matchups.
Yep, a lot of tough matchups.
In the past, it's been the first round of the playoffs for some fantasy owners. It's going to be the last week of the regular season now for fantasy, I believe, for most leagues. So it's an exciting time in the NFL. And what do we got for you against the spread?
Well, against the spread, last week, I just want to say I went 3-0 with my best bets, with the picks that I gave here. 3-0. I am back over 500 for the season picking against the spread. And that's why I say everybody can pick straight up and be over 500. You can throw darts against the schedule and come up pretty well. But take a look around. Take a look at people who brag about how well they pick against the spread and see how many of them are over 500, not just over 500 against the spread, over 500 picking every game each week against the spread.
Right.
All right. I am now over 500 picking every game each week against the spread in a year that has been hell to pick games.
It's true. It really has been hard to pick games.
But I just want to brag a little bit because I felt good after last week. I finally came back and feeling nice. All right, game 1, Chargers are facing the New York Giants at home. I think that's in Los Angeles, if I'm not mistaken. Let me look at it here real quick. Uh, in SoFi Stadium. Chargers are 9.5 point favorites. Chargers actually played a tough game last night. Cincinnati, they got off to a 24-0 lead over Cincinnati last week.
Right.
Cincinnati cut that lead to 24-22. And then a Joe Mixon fumble at midfield kind of turned the momentum back around, and LA finally, finished running away with that game. This week, they're favored by 9.5 points. I will give you two words why you want to take the Chargers. Mike Glennon. Mike Glennon has cleared concussion protocol and will be playing quarterback for the Giants. So, take the Chargers minus 9.5. Again, Saquon Barkley is going to get his yards. The Giants are going to run the ball fairly successfully. The problem is their wide receiver core is hurt.
Yeah.
And Daniel Jones is out with a sore neck. And the Chargers are going to take this game. The Chargers are hurt by injuries. I think Austin Eckler is going to be out, but still, they're just such a much better team. Take the Chargers. Go ahead and give the points. I feel very good about that. The Chiefs are minus 10 against the Raiders, and they are playing that game at
Kansas City. Yeah.
Yeah. Earlier in the season, the problem with the Chiefs was their defense. And they weren't scoring as much, but their defense was giving games away like crazy. Their defense has stiffened up over the last month.
Yeah.
It's been amazing how well that unit has come together.
Yeah.
And they're playing a team that is falling apart. The Raiders, I think Waller's hurt. I think Josh Jacobs has been ineffective.
Drake is hurt too.
Yeah, so it's just a team that's starting to come apart. It's a team that kind of comes apart by habit at the end of seasons, and they're doing it again.
Yeah, they've gone through a lot this year.
Yeah,
and I mean,
they really have.
I feel bad for the team, the players that are still on the team, but I mean, I don't have any sympathy for John Gruden or Henry Ruggs.
No, neither do I.
But the team itself, yeah, they're going through a lot. Two events really that are unprecedented, right? I mean, two things that never happen have happened to the Raiders this year. To the team.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, Kansas City is still in the hunt for the number 1 seed in the AFC. Mm-hmm. Right now, New England, and it's funny because I think there have been like 4 teams that have held the number 1 seed in the AFC this season, and they've all gone down.
Right.
I think Tennessee lasted 2 weeks in the number 1 spot before they fell out of it. So it's really funny, but Kansas City still has a shot. Patriots are 9-4 going into this weekend. Kansas City Chiefs are 8-4. Oh, are the Patriots on their?
Patriots are on their bye.
They're on their bye. Okay. So the Chiefs can match the Patriots at 9-4. Yeah, I forgot the Patriots were on their bye this week.
Yeah.
But the Patriots are looking sharp. And if the Chiefs want to take over the number 1 spot in the AFC, they have to win. They're favored by 10. I think they're going to play an outstanding game. I think they will win by more than 10. I think the Raiders just aren't good enough right now to stay within that spread. Third game, Seahawks are giving the 8.5 points against the Houston Texans. The Houston Texans are done. Okay. Let's stick a fork in them. They are done. They've gone back to what's that quarterback?
Davis Mills.
Davis Mills. And there's a reason why I forgot his name. Yeah, I mean, Tyrod Taylor just played terrible. He had played a good first week. He had played a couple of good weeks, but I understand why Tyrod Taylor is not playing. I don't agree with it because I think Tyrod Taylor is still a better quarterback than Davis Mills. But I think the Seahawks kind of set got back on the right path last week. They kind of found themselves after they'd fallen for quite a ways. They've almost pretty much fallen out of the playoff race in the NFC. But they came back and they beat San Francisco at home, and they looked really good doing it. And as I said, I think the Texans are done. I think they're toast. Give the 8.5. Enjoy. When the NFL when sportsbooks wants to give you free money like that, go ahead and take it. It's allowed. So those are my 3 picks. Chargers minus 9.5. Chiefs minus 10, Seahawks minus 8.5. I usually don't ride with 3 picks that are giving 2 scores, in each game. But the opponents they're facing, I think it's worth it. I think it's worth the shot.
So you're unimpressed by my 124-69 record straight up this year?
No, that's very impressive. That is, Dave. That's very impressive. I'm not saying that you shouldn't be impressed by it. I'm just saying try picking against the spread.
No, I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. There's a reason. It's just I do a family poll, and it's mostly my mom that doesn't want to do the spread. When we've done the spread in the past, though, she usually takes your picks. She wants you to do all the games for her. Which you can find all of Tom's picks against the spread.
Yeah, you can find them all.
Yes.
All from A-to-Z.com. Thank you for reminding.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yes. Football from A-to-Z.com. I'm going to be writing the article today. We'll have it up sometime tonight. And you will be able to read tomorrow morning. You will be able to see every one of my picks against the spread heading into week 14. Again, 1 pick above 500. So I'm feeling really, really good.
Well, today's video is brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the simplest fantasy sports game on the market. Download the app. Get started today. When you download, make sure when you make your first deposit, use the promo code ASU. There it is right there on the screen. Yep. With that promo code, you get a 100% match up to $100. So you deposit $50, you get $50. $75, you get $75. It's a free Christmas gift from Prize Picks.
Yeah.
And Tom has a couple of picks here in week 14 to get you started tomorrow.
Yep. Oh, by the way, I am 109 and 64 straight up. So yeah, you're doing
109 and 64.
Yeah, you're impressive. That's very good. So I give you your props.
Okay.
However, again, no, actually, that's not counting last week. I had 10. I'm 119 and 69. That's after last week. So, okay. And
you're 5 games behind me, I think.
Yeah, getting close. I'll catch you by the end of the year.
You probably will. I haven't been doing as well lately.
I'll nail you. I say Russell Wilson, again, going against the Texans, playing in Houston. Doesn't have to deal with all the wind and rain and all the crap that you get in Seattle as far as the weather. 229.5 yards, passing yards he's projected for this weekend. Take the over. I like that. I like Russell Wilson getting the over on that. If I would say take Davis Mills under the 203.5 yards, passing yards. But the last time I took an under on Davis Mills, he got like his entire passing yardage in garbage time.
Yeah. Yeah.
It killed me. Oh, man.
Taking the under with Prize Picks is tough. Because you can look great for 3 quarters or whatever. And then, the 4th quarter, garbage time, whatever. We saw it again Thursday night. I mean,
yep. Unless
you had Chase Claypool, the under on him or something, then you weren't going to the Steelers players got the over in just a quarter.
Ben, yeah, he picked it up. I'm telling you. What do you think about Chase Claypool, by the way? The fact that he wouldn't give up the ball to the referee, he's costing his team time.
I don't have anything good to say about Chase Claypool right now, other than he's extremely talented and he's very dumb. He needs to learn football intelligence. I hope Mike Tomlin can teach him a little bit, but unfortunately, Pittsburgh has been a place that has had immature, to say the least, immature wide receivers. And I don't know if Chase Claypool is going to. I think he's probably on the path to being, the next Antonio Brown, the next Plexico Burress.
What do you think about the fact that Ben Roethlisberger said it's not my problem about Chase Claypool?
I think he was just too honest with his answer there. I think he's right. It's not his problem. I don't think. I mean, 2 weeks. You're asking Ben Roethlisberger that question 2 weeks after there's a report that this is his last season. He's got 4 games left with the team. He probably doesn't have as much. I could be way wrong with this, but I think maybe he feels like he doesn't have the clout in the locker room that he did last year or 3-4 years ago or earlier in his career, because he's not going to be the team. He's a lame duck, if you will.
Yes.
So it's not really his team going forward. He could have phrased it a little bit better and said, yeah, maybe I'll talk to him, but I'm not going to step on Mike Tomlin's toes or whatever, blah, blah, blah. He shouldn't have. I think he phrased it the wrong way, but ultimately I think Ben is correct. And Claypool, I hated his answer to the reporter asking him about the fourth quarter play. Let's not forget, he was already benched in the game for making a dumb hit in the first quarter that cost the Steelers 15 yards. And that was kind of where it started to go downhill for the Steelers offense in the first half. They had a good first drive that ended in a missed field goal. And then the second drive was bogged down by a 15-yard penalty from Chase Claypool, which was completely unnecessary.
Yes, it was.
Personal foul.
Zozo, you can have attention in a minute. We're almost done here.
His Claypool's answer with what happened in the fourth quarter, he said, I need to be better, but then made excuses.
Yes.
Said that it was Trey Turner that knocked the ball out of his hand, and that's why the referee didn't get it right away. You were celebrating a first down, 2-minute drill.
Yes, exactly.
And I think there have been some people that have said, really ripped apart the Steelers for, having a bad culture in their wide receiver room, basically, because this is not the first immature or boneheaded wide receiver the Steelers have had on their team. But does Mike Tomlin really need to teach Chase Claypool not to celebrate a first down?
No, he shouldn't.
Is that really something we have to go over in training camp?
No.
I mean,
this is football 101.
Right, exactly. And I had a friend that told me, well, Chase Claypool didn't act like this at Notre Dame. He wasn't doing this at Notre Dame. Well, I don't know why all of a sudden the Steelers aren't teaching him to do this. So I don't know where he's picked up on. He's got to celebrate every little thing that he does, even a catch in the 2-minute drill that gets the team into field goal range when they need a touchdown and a 2-point conversion,
right,
to force overtime. So I don't know. I don't have anything positive other than to say that he's very physically gifted.
There's no doubt about that.
I am very down. I'm very, very down on Chase Claypool right now. Because not only is he making these mistakes, he's not taking accountability for himself to make the right decisions going forward. And a week ago, he's the one that suggested that they need to play music during practice. You heard about that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and I think there are a lot of fans that have the approach of, well, just make him go run laps, teach him a lesson, bench him. Well, Mike Tomlin did bench him, and this is how he responded. That's not a good sign. There's only so much you can do to players in the NFL these days.
And running laps works in high school and college. It's not going to
right. Exactly. I think us athletes that played sports in high school and college maybe forget or don't realize that these are grown men teaching grown men. And Mike Tomlin only has so much authority over all of his players. And that's true, not just for Mike Tomlin. That's true for all the coaches across the entire league.
Exactly.
So what can the Steelers do to humble Chase Claypool? I don't know. I don't know. It's not a good situation.
No.
Because I don't think it cost the team a play into the end zone.
Yeah.
That him not getting up and immediately giving the ball to the referee cost them probably about 5 seconds. And that might have been a play into the end zone at the end of the game. I think there were 3 seconds left when the last play was run to.
Well, it was like Deontay Johnson busted his butt to get out of bounds.
Yeah. Right.
To make that last play happen.
Yeah. Yes. I'm very encouraged by Deontay Johnson. I think he is a superstar in the making, and he still drops too many passes, but he had a lot of drops last year, and he seems to have gotten better at catching. And I think that's a credit to the hard work that he's put into improving his hands.
I agree.
Chase Claypool isn't putting in the work. He's not taking accountability for his mistakes. He's giving very poor answers to the media. And I don't know what you do in 2021, where the players have all the social media they want, all the fans in their corner too. Yeah. I don't know what you do to try and humble a player like Chase Claypool and make him a better teammate, because it really, right now, what it comes down to is he's a very bad teammate.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a frustrating thing, because you almost had that game. You almost made it all the way back. It's a frustrating thing.
Yeah, and I think the conversation should have been about how the Steelers came back. They didn't give up. Yeah, you can talk about they gave up 200 rushing yards. Of course, that's part of the conversation and part of what the team needs to improve on in the offseason, that run defense and just the defense in general. But Claypool's boneheaded mistake in the 2-minute drill took away from the fact that team didn't give up, and we're very close to the biggest comeback in NFL history. Close but no scar doesn't really cut it, but I mean, at least they can say they didn't give up. Mm-hmm. I felt much better at the end of the fourth quarter than I did at halftime as a Steeler fan. But then the conversation all day yesterday was about Chase Claypool, and that ruins any positives that you can take from the fourth
really
quarter.
Does. Yes, it does.
Yeah.
All right. So Russell Wilson, 229. I think Patrick Mahomes is going over 300 yards in against the Raiders. So take him at 275.5. And those are my prize picks for the week.
Awesome. I wanted to mention this earlier in the show. I don't know if ironic is the right word, but Demaryius Thomas passed away during Thursday's game. And the big takeaway from Thursday's game was a boneheaded wide receiver mistake that Demaryius Thomas would never, ever, ever do. Ever do.
No.
Demaryius Thomas was the exact opposite of what Chase Claypool is right now.
Yes,
and we lost him way too early, 33 years old.
Yes, way too early. And it was just incredibly sad to hear.
I have
and the Broncos are going to honor Demaryius Thomas this weekend with a moment of silence, and they're going to wear shoulder patches with his number. The Broncos are going to honor him, but way too young.
I know.
It's just ridiculous and to see.
I didn't realize he was living in the Atlanta area. He was living in Roswell.
Yeah.
For our Falcons fans, listeners, he's in my neighborhood basically, and I'm so sad to hear that he no longer will be in my neighborhood. And a great person by all accounts, and a fantastic football player. He didn't have a long prime, not long enough to be in the Hall of Fame conversation, but at his peak, he was as good as Antonio Brown, as good as Des Bryant, as good as any other wide receiver that's played, as good as Julio Jones, as any other wide receiver that's played in the last 15 years.
Yes, he was. Absolutely. I agree.
So we send our thoughts and prayers to his friends, his family, during this really, really difficult time. Demaryius Thomas passing away at 33.
And
But
don't want to forget that Mike Nesmith passed away too this couple of days ago. So, no, monkeys. No, okay. I'm sorry.
sorry.
Old reference. Okay. That one was a kind of a stab in the heart from my youth, as far as Mike Nesmith passing. So, but okay. No, I don't want to take away from Demaryius Thomas.
No, yeah. I'm just trying to think of a transition so we don't have to end on such a down note on the show. But we are out of time here today. Hopefully, Week 14 is exciting. Take our prize picks and Tom's picks against the spread. Hope you have some luck there, and enjoy the Falcons game. A must-win matchup, but it should be an exciting, close divisional showdown. So for coverage on that game, check out si.com/NFL/Falcons. My coverage will be there, and follow Tom and I on Twitter at TJ Pollen at DM Holcomb. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern time.
Have a great week.